You thought loyalty was enough, that staying when it got hard was the proof of love. But what if she was never taught to see it that way? What if the moment you started falling was the moment she started leaving? Because here's the truth. No one ever told us growing up. Men are taught to fight through the fire. Women are taught to flee from it. And that difference, that's the invisible crack that breaks more relationships than betrayal ever did. Let me show you the moment it all starts to shift and how to finally see it coming before she's gone. Why is it that the moment a man falls, emotionally, financially or physically, the woman he thought would never leave suddenly does? It's not a game. It's not selfishness. It's not even betrayal the way you think of it. It's something far more instinctive, so deeply wired into her emotional DNA that most men never see it coming. And that's what I want to reveal to you today. Because once you understand this one truth, the one key that unlocks how women behave when things get tough, you'll stop being confused. You'll stop blaming yourself. You'll stop playing back every little moment trying to figure out what you did wrong. And instead, you'll start to see the pattern. You'll recognize the shift. You'll understand why she changed. Not because she stopped loving you, but because something in her felt unsafe. And when that happens, everything else starts to unravel. I'm not here to make women the enemy. That's not what this is about. What I'm here to do is help you finally understand what nobody ever sat us down and told us as young men, that there is one silent, unspoken rule that guides how most women connect, stay, and eventually pull away. It's not something you'll hear in the vows. It's not something she'll ever say out loud. But it's real. And once you know it, it changes everything. Let's talk about that cipher, the code that explains why some relationships fall apart right when you thought they were finally unbreakable. When you grow up on a military base, you learn two things real fast. There are rules everywhere, and there are always ways to bend them. The place runs like a machine. Orders, curfews, uniforms, consequences. But kids like me and Mike, we knew how to find the cracks in the system. We weren't looking for trouble most of the time, but somehow it always seemed to find us anyway. We did the kinds of things that, if we'd gotten caught, could have changed everything. I'm talking real trouble, but no matter what we got into, no matter how deep it got, Mike never left me hanging. He didn't rat me out. He didn't disappear when it got messy. He stayed, and I did the same for him. That wasn't just some kind of code we followed. It was automatic. You don't abandon your guy, period. You cover for him, you carry it with him, you take the heat together. That's just what you do. That bond, that unshakable loyalty, it gets into your bones. It becomes your foundation for how you see the world. When you grow up with that kind of friendship, that kind of trust, it shapes your definition of love, of connection, of what it means to really be there for someone. Mike taught me more about loyalty than any adult ever did. He showed me what it meant to stand beside someone, even when standing beside them might cost you. That's the kind of lesson you don't forget. It stays with you. So later, when you meet the woman who seems to light up your whole world, that mindset kicks in. Automatically, you think, here she is. This is the one I'll give everything to, and I'll do it the way I've always done it, with everything I've got. And that feeling, it's powerful. It feels like this woman is the reward for all the battles you've fought and the good you've tried to be. She doesn't just make your heart beat, she makes you feel like a man. Like all the chaos, all the loneliness, all the years of figuring it out have finally led you to something solid. You don't just want her, you want to protect her, build with her, be her home. It's not about playing games or keeping score. You're all in, just like you've always been. And in the back of your mind, you believe, really believe, that she sees it the same way, that the loyalty you're offering will be mirrored right back. You assume you're building the same thing, brick by brick, side by side, because for you, commitment isn't about rules or obligation. It's about identity. It's about standing for something. You don't walk away when it gets hard. You dig deeper. You find a way. That's what you've always done. That's what men do. right? So when you stand up at that altar, looking into her eyes, repeating those vows, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, you're not just saying words. You're taking an oath. You're saying, whatever comes, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. You don't even think about conditions. You're not calculating risk. You're not measuring how long you'll stay if things go bad. You're in no matter what. That's the default. But here's what no one tells you. Here's the truth most men learn the hard way, if they learn it at all. She might not see it the same way. Not because she's lying, not because she's malicious, but because she was never taught to love through the same lens. Where you were. Taught to endure, she was taught to assess, to feel, to protect herself. So what you see as devotion, she might see as instability. What you call pushing through, she might experience as emotional distance. You think your loyalty speaks for itself, but she's looking for something else entirely, something you didn't even know she needed. And that's when the disconnect begins. Quiet at first, subtle, a shift in the way she speaks, a look in her eye that wasn't there before. The warmth starts to fade, and you don't understand why. You're still the same guy. Still loyal, still trying, but something's changing, and she's not saying it out loud, but you can feel it. That invisible thread between you is starting to fray. You rack your brain trying to figure out what went wrong. You replay conversations. You work harder. You try to fix it, because that's what you do when something you care about starts to break. You fix it. But what if she's not waiting for you to fix it? What if deep down, she's already planning her exit? What if her heart started walking away long before her feet did, and you never saw it coming because no one ever told you that you and her might have been playing by completely different rules all along, and by the time you finally realize that, you're standing there, alone in a house you helped build, holding on to a loyalty she never fully understood, and wondering where the hell it all went wrong. But it didn't go wrong. It just followed a pattern that was invisible to you until now. What if, from the very beginning, you and she weren't playing the same game? What if you thought you both agreed to the same rules, the same promises, the same forever? But in reality, you were each reading a different script, following a different set of instructions, and neither of you even knew it? So now you're married, you're in. You've made the decision, you signed the papers, you moved in together, you built a life, you merged your money, your time, your families, you gave her your name or took hers or dropped the formality altogether. But emotionally you went all in, and for a little while it works. You laugh together, you share inside jokes, she rubs your shoulder when you're driving. You bring her coffee in the morning just the way she likes it. You feel like a team. And that sense of being wanted, of being chosen, of being needed, it lights something up in you. It feels like finally, after all those years of trying to figure it out, you found someone who gets it, who gets you. You feel like you've arrived, you found your person. The war is over, but slowly things start to shift, not all at once, not loud or obvious, subtle at first. The tone in her voice when she asks what you're doing, the way her laugh sounds a little more polite, a little less real. The way she touches your hand, less often, less lingering. The conversations grow shorter, she's preoccupied, her phone's always in her hand. Her eyes flick away when you speak, and you tell yourself it's nothing. She's tired, it's work stress, maybe it's hormones, it'll pass. So you give her space, then you try harder, you plan something nice, you surprise her, you take over chores, you act calm when she's distant. You try to be the man she fell for, you double down on loyalty, because that's what we do. That's how we're built. We fix things, we hold on. But no one ever told us growing up that she was never trained for that kind of loyalty. Not the way we were. See, we learned loyalty by fire. We learned it in situations where you had to be loyal, where walking away wasn't an option, because walking away meant someone got hurt. We learned it from the boys we ran with, the trouble we got into, the fights we had each other's backs in. Loyalty wasn't something you talked about. It was just baked into the code. You had your guy's back and he had yours. Simple, but she didn't grow up in that kind of world. She didn't grow up learning that loyalty means staying even when it's uncomfortable. She wasn't raised with a survival pack of friends who learned to protect each other by instinct. She wasn't taught that if someone's falling apart, you grab their arm and hold them up. She was taught something else. She was taught to follow her feelings, to listen to her heart, to protect her peace. She was taught not to stay in places that feel wrong, not to suffer through storms if the boat's taking on water. She was taught to leave before it breaks. That doesn't make her bad. That doesn't make her the villain. It makes her what she is, a woman. A person wired by nature and nurture to seek safety, to seek comfort, to move away from fear instead of toward the fire. And that difference, right there, that's the gap that swallows so many marriages whole. Because when the storm hits, we brace. We lock our feet in the ground and say, I'll weather this. We grit our teeth. We lean in. We protect. We push through. But she doesn't. She doesn't see that as noble. She sees it as dangerous. While you're tightening your grip, she's scanning the horizon, checking the ship, looking at the cracks in the walls, the water at her feet, and thinking, how much longer can I stay in this without drowning? And if she thinks the ship might go down, she doesn't wait for the water to reach her neck. She reaches for the lifeboat, not because she's cruel, not because she's heartless, but because in her mind, that's what survival looks like. That's what emotional self-preservation feels like. And here's the part that hits hard. The vows didn't land the same. When you said for better or worse, you meant it. You were ready to crawl through glass, if that's what it took to keep the relationship intact. But when worse showed up, she didn't crawl. She didn't cling. She didn't fight. She quietly stepped back. And then she left. Not always physically at first. Sometimes it starts with her heart, her presence, her warmth. She disappears little by little, one smile at a time, one bedtime conversation at a time. Until one day you look at her and you realize she's already gone, even if her body is still sitting next to you. And when that happens, something inside you breaks. Because you thought you were in this together. You thought your loyalty was the glue. But it turns out she had her own quiet condition. A line you never saw written in the vows, but it was there, buried between the words. I'll stay as long as I feel safe. Now think back. Was there a moment she stopped laughing at your jokes the same way? When her touch felt more like routine than affection? When her eyes didn't light up when you walked into the room? Those weren't just bad days. Those were early warning signs, not of hatred, not of disinterest, but of her heart retreating. Her instinct for self-protection kicking in. She wasn't trying to betray you. She wasn't out to hurt you. She was responding to something she couldn't always explain, not to you, not even to herself. But her body knew. Her energy knew. Her emotions knew. This man I once trusted doesn't feel like a safe place anymore. And if you've ever lived through that moment, the one where you realize you're the only one still holding on, you know it's a different kind of pain. It's not loud. It's not explosive. It's quiet, hollow, like watching someone pack a bag in silence while your heart screams at them to stay. And the worst part, you didn't fail. You just didn't know the rules had changed. You didn't even know there were different rules, but now you do. Now you understand why she backed away. Why the same woman who used to press herself against you at night now pulls the covers to her side. Why she stopped reaching for your hand. Why she stopped believing in us. She wasn't broken. She wasn't evil. She was just following her emotional survival code. And once you learn how to read that code, once you understand that cipher, everything begins to change. You stop taking it personally. You stop beating yourself up. You stop walking around carrying guilt for things you never understood. And you start to rebuild from a place of strength, of clarity, of awareness. Maybe it's too late for the relationship you were in, or maybe you're still in it, and you've just now started to see what's been happening beneath the surface. Either way, the path forward starts here, not with blame, but with understanding, because now you know the truth. Now you see what she couldn't say out loud. And now, if there's a next time, you'll walk into it with your eyes wide open, not looking for loyalty that mirrors yours, but learning how to create safety, emotional safety for her, not through words, but through presence, through consistency, through emotional awareness. And that's how we stop losing each other in the silence. If any part of this hit you in the gut, if you found yourself nodding, maybe even holding back something in your chest, then I want to hear from you. Because this isn't just my story. It's not some scripted message. This is something real. It's something that too many men go through silently. Good men. Men who gave everything they had to someone they loved, only to watch her pull away without explanation. And for years, they carry that weight, wondering if they failed, questioning what they missed, feeling like they weren't enough. But maybe today, something clicked for you. Maybe today, you finally saw the truth behind all the confusion. If that's you, drop a comment below. Now I see it. Just those 4 words. Not for me, but for you. Because sometimes just naming what you've gone through is the start of healing. And if you're willing, tell me what part opened your eyes the most, what hit the hardest, what helped you let go of guilt or gave you clarity you didn't have before. Because this space, we built it for that. For men who don't want fluff, who don't need hype, just the truth. Raw, real talk about love, loyalty, loss, and the silent. Rules we were never taught. So if you found value in this, if you want more honest conversations like this, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Stick around, because the next time you're staring down a complicated moment in love, you won't be lost anymore. You won't be blind, you'll be ready. And this time, you'll know exactly what you're looking at.